All right. Welcome viewers to chapter 7 of our readings of Gita. This chapter is titled Wisdom from Realization. Uh, I would like Kabir to start with his takeaways of the chapter. Like for me, the just one question I would like to even ask before we get started is that are we talking truly about the Gyan Marg now? Is this chapter referring to Gyan Marg when it says wisdom from realization?
Great. Okay, thanks, Shashank. Uh, I wouldn't classify the chapter as Gyan Marg because it's not really going into specifics of what we consider Gyan Marg. It's more like it's talking. It's things are becoming subtler and deeper, and sort of going into, if we may say, cosmology now, right? The existential questions. And as we have seen, things started in a very personal way, so to speak. Krishna was a person, Arjun is a warrior, and now they are becoming deeper and deeper. And in this chapter, every time Krishna is referring to himself, he is referring to himself as the absolute consciousness, right? And every time the noun, the first person noun now is referring to absolute consciousness. So I would say that uh, this chapter is now sort of answering some of the cosmological question, as if how does existence operate? And like Krishna mentions about gunas, the qualities of sattva, rajas, tamas, how their interplay creates an illusion that there are different individuals, different things, while in essence everything is just consciousness. In fact, at one point he rightly says that uh, people think that I, the unmanifest, have manifested because the experiences of space, time, people, things, colors. So it feels like unmanifested has manifested. But then he clarifies, he says, but the ones who know me truly know that no, I have not really manifested. That's such paradoxes are coming now, right? Because he's like, my essence never changes. I am the unmanifest and the manifest. It's a bit like a dreamer doesn't if and I think we are going to take this metaphor a lot to understand verses in this chapter, because that's the closest analogy most people have, that when we dream we don't disappear, but in essence we disappear, we forget ourselves. And in fact, in a particular kind of dreaming which some people are able to cultivate, they are aware that it is a dream going on, right? So they know. So would you say dream is different from the mind of the dreamer? Or you may say the mind of the dreamer has manifested into a dream. But because it has manifested into a dream and so many different forms, has it become different? Has it become multiplied? No, it is the same mind, same one mind, which is being experienced at all these forms and beings in a dream, and sounds and experiences. And yet the dreamer may know that this is me. This is just me. Nothing has changed. It's a dream. In fact, I thought I would talk about it later in our discussion, but I feel like sharing now. I, in fact, was told by a very young boy, I think 10 or 12 years old at that time, that he was naturally aware of his dreams and he would enjoy his dreams. And when he thinks this demon is trying to, scare him, he would change the demon into something funny in the dream. So he'll not wake up. He was able to modify his dream, and knowing that it's a dream, he still wanted to experience. And if somebody, by the way, woke him up sometimes, he would often say, come on, wait, let me sleep, let me complete my dream. So he had such control on his dream. And this is not a isolated phenomena. This is, I forgot, I'm very bad with terms. There is a particular term for this kind of dreaming.
Lucid dreaming? I don't know.
Sort of, I think that's it. So you can cultivate that. Anyone can cultivate that if they are interested in, so that you are aware while the dream is going on. So that metaphor is pretty much how the explains what Krishna is talking about, this entire universe, the entire manifestation. And he is the dreamer here. He, as in the supreme consciousness, is saying, I am the same, and the wise ones. But then all these paradoxes, you say, who are the wise ones? Because it's just the absolute consciousness. But the apparent people on their journeys, individuals in their mind recognize the same reality, because essence of all the characters in this particular dream is that supreme consciousness. So it's not like there is one character and all other are fake. It's like, you can say this supreme consciousness is experiencing that dream from all these different perspectives, from Nadine's perspective, Shashank's perspective, Kafi's perspective. This is the same supreme consciousness. This is how he's sort of hinting at those existential questions and giving a hint to Arjun about this highest perspective. And of course, he has been talking in bits and pieces about how to eventually experience this, but he just wanted to, I guess, at this point, throw it out to Arjun and say, this is where we are going, and all these perspectives are eventually going to help Arjun as an individual to see that I'm giving so much of heaviness and importance to something which is dreamlike and unreal and just a play of Maya. So this is how I understand.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I think especially this dream analogy kind of makes it very, I think that's a very good way to summarize the chapter also, because that's what I like. Now you say it, that makes a lot of sense, that you are the dreamer basically, and you're also the character, and that wisdom is basically knowing that you are actually the dreamer and the character in the dream. But
Yes.
so Nadine, what are your thoughts on this chapter?
Yeah, I would second what Kabir said. The analogy with the dream and the dreamer is really good. And I would even take it into our daily experience when we are awake, because maybe you also remember situations where you're so in the moment and connected to your true joy that you're not your mind anymore. You're just, you just experience the reality which is there in its fullness, in its abundance, and everything else drops, and that's what I think in previous sessions also discussed, when time has a different meaning, when that drops, when you don't have thoughts about, should I do this, should I do that, or what's next, you're actually just in the moment and flowing. You just feel connected with everything, and you're feeling your truth in a way. You just intuitively know what you are doing. Like it's like you don't have to think about it. It's just you are it. And I think these experiences are also going in what this chapter of self-realization is about. And I found this one particular verse very interesting, where he describes also out of what reasons people are seeking self-realization, and I think this makes a huge difference from which space you're trying to pursue to come into that space. Because there would be some people, he said, like, they are coming because of suffering. Some they want to worship and hope out of it that something good will happen to them, or some they don't seek it at all because they are so caught in their mind. And then he talks about those with the wisdom. And I think what they mean, those with the wisdom, are those what Kabir referred to in the dream, like that 8-year-old boy that can be so conscious in his dream, or you being in your life and being able in your daily situations to drop the judgments, the mind, the filters, the Maya, whatever you call it. Like it's like our mind puts so many layers on our experience. We're trying to judge everything all the time. And if that drops, then you are in the wisdom. Then also your answers are coming from within. Then you're not seeking for your answers outside, because you know that you have everything inside. So and maybe I can refer here also to an example. I went yesterday, I remembered a photo I clicked of a butterfly, and I looked at it, and I did a post on it where I've written, the universe in a butterfly, that's what it's all about. And I mean with that we are this universe, you are Krishna, and you don't need to seek outside. We have that wisdom in us, and it's about hearing that inner voice. And I think this is what Krishna refers to in this chapter, that he is impermanent, like he's there and he's not there. It's like eternal, it's an impermanent, eternal being that we have in us.
Yeah.
And that means if you truly understand that, then you have all the answers in you. You don't need to look outside for them because you are there. And the point is, those who may seek or try to find answers out of suffering, they are coming from their space of suffering, it's impacting your search, you're trying to finding your solutions. But if you truly are able to connect within and having that feeling of that truth is within you already, and you need to give that time and space to hear it, then you're getting there on its own, in a way.
I think for me, the struggle has always been, how do you remain in that wisdom, right? Like for most of this week, I was in that wisdom. I would I think, right? And then life is very easy, right? Like you're very joyful, and then you somehow just snap into this ignorance, right? And things start to feel very heavy and tough. And then even though you have this knowledge, right? Like intellectually, you know that, okay, this is not important, but you're not able to snap out of that place and come into this place of wisdom where you know that you are just dreaming, right? And you are the dreamer itself, and this is just a play. So I know we've talked about this so many times, but why does that happen? Even intellectually, you can know this, right? This knowledge can be with you. This wisdom can be with you in terms of intellectual wisdom. But then even after that, you will just snap into this place of ignorance. So, and then snapping out is not that easy, or at least it feels like it's not that easy. So, any comments on that for me?
Now, that's why there is this term called sadhana. And in the context of this chapter, if we understand, Krishna is talking about Maya, the power of Maya, the power of attachment that Maya creates in us, which is the cause of wisdom. We have craving and aversion towards all these forms and experiences. By the way, these are not just forms external to our body, but even within this body, the emotions, the imagination, the thoughts. And that's why many times Maya is referred by many enlightened beings, including Buddha. Buddha called it Mara, as almost an entity, almost something which has a different agenda. But that's not really true, but it is true. Again, it's a bit paradoxical. Yeah, go ahead, please.
A very interesting thing which the chapter says is that Mara comes from me. I think it says the gunas, is created of the gunas, which three gunas, Rajas, Tapas, and Sattva. But it says it's not me, right? And everywhere else, consciousness saying the desire is me, the intelligence is me, right? The joy is me. But then here it makes a slight distinction that even though it comes from me, it is not me. What is the significance of that?
I believe what he's trying to, because it's matter of words and context. So in this particular context, the Supreme Consciousness is saying that, yes, all these characters in the dream are coming from me, but I am not in any of this, in the sense that I'm not limited to any one character. I am sum total of all of this. And also something, little bit, I'm digressing a little, but something which touched me during this chapter. One of the verses, Krishna is very emphatic that some people think that I, unmanifested, have manifested in a form, and then they start valuing that form. So this is a hint towards those who see Krishna as a god in the form in any way. And he's saying, but the true, the wise being, you may even say the true bhakt, he would see me in all the forms. And he'll understand that I don't limit myself to any form. So I believe that's what he hinted to some level, that even that is limited. Maya has come out of me, just like all the other qualities and all the other beings and everything which is out there. But I am not in it. It doesn't mean that there can be anything which can exist outside of Supreme Being, because it is beyond space and time, right? So there can just nothing be beyond this Supreme Consciousness. So in Christian mythology, for example, sometimes when they are explaining from dualistic point of view, they talk about God and devil as two different entities, because it feels like the way Maya operates, it's so much opposite of how we feel when we are closer to consciousness, right? You feel so divided, you feel so conflicted, you feel so much suffering. One is capable of so much violence, that it's just very hard to imagine that this too has come out of God, right? But then if you listen to mystics and the deeper meaning, even in Bible, eventually there is this wisdom that all of this has come from one reality, has been created from one space. So I believe that is a hint, I guess, if not the answer to your question. But coming back to the previous question, you talked about sadhana a little bit, right? So in this chapter, in fact, in the context of this chapter, again and again, Krishna, the Supreme Consciousness, is hinting, I think in almost half the verses, that the one who is focused on me, the one who is interested in consciousness, who is focused on consciousness, who wants to go beyond the changing things, who is tired of this drama, and who is in love with me, who is seeking me, seeking refuge in me, who is focused on me. Me is the Supreme Consciousness within ourselves, in each one of us. So the one who is introverted, the one who is trying to see, who is the experiencer of all these experiences. So to him, I reveal myself. He becomes one with me, and so on. So the answer to your question, how and why it happens, because we are not yet tired of the forms. They are such so interesting. And we probably, if you look at life, the proposal of how we have lived so many lifetimes as an individual focused on outside things. So there have been so much cravings and aversion. And I believe towards the end, in one of the verses, Krishna says that if once your bad karmas have finished, something like that. What are those bad karmas in this context? Bad karmas are just those tendencies which still make us, which cause us to focus with craving and aversion towards outside goals. So any goals which are phenomenal yet are kind of taking us away from ourselves. And once they burn out, and sometimes, like we have talked about in Karma Yoga, they are so strong, those tendencies are so strong, we can't just drop them. We have to let them play out. You would have such strong desire, for example, to create something or to help someone. And in Karma Yoga, they are encouraging that please do that. But do that with this background awareness. Don't be attached with the result. Just experience that here is this creative tendency in me, or this urge to act in this situation, a social situation, or so on. And see yourself as an actor playing that out. And in fact, that's what is Krishna telling Arjun. He's not telling him that drop everything, leave this war zone, and close your eyes and focus within. He's saying, no, your tendencies are rajasic, of a warrior. You won't be able to do that yet. So express them here with this understanding that you are the Supreme Consciousness. And as you burn these tendencies and continue to be at one place, Krishna says, act in the world, but keep your heart on the lotus feet of the Lord, which is keep your attention in this space of beingness, in this space which is the space of witnessing, while your body mind is acting, so that you don't create new karmas, so that you don't get caught into these attachments or aversions. And by doing that, these tendencies will burn. The bad karmas are burning away. And then this space is left, which is very easily, spontaneously aware, with like what Nadine mentioned a little while ago, that one would be able to be in present moment more and more, and the sense of identity will dissolve without any intellectual reminders. Just intuitively one feels the oneness, that there is one, we are one, but you can't explain to anyone, you can't communicate it to anyone. And you would just encourage them that if possible, just come to this moment, drop past, drop future, drop the autobiography and see, can't you feel it? Right? And so that is the sadhana. Why it happens? The answer to the question is because Maya has the power of Maya. There so much has been written about it, and it has the benefit of habit pattern of who knows millions of lifetimes. But in fact, power of truth is so much more that perhaps a few months, a few years of so-called effort. I am calling it so-called effort because it's effortless phase to focus within, like Krishna is saying, focus on me, be dedicated to me, be consciousness within, and you would see it starts falling apart, all these illusions.
That was very helpful. That made a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
Nadine, do you have like any like I have a few things I wanted to bring on the chapter, but Nadine has anything on her mind right now?
Yeah, maybe just 2 points on what Kabir said. I think this is, or what you also talked about, the sadhana. It's so important because Kabir, I got stuck in one point you said where you are not stuck, but it alerted me, where you said, like, acting out this tendency, yeah? And here, I mean, and I think, Shashank, that goes towards what you were saying, why is it so difficult to stay in that? Because there is a very slippery slope from acting that out into playing that role. Like, what roles are we playing in our life? You may be a father, you may be the CEO of your company, you may be a friend of XYZ, you may be this, that, da, 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 da. So are you aware that you are playing a role and that you play that role based on whatever is there in kind of desires or unmet needs, or what you have maybe as a blind spot, and that's why that role comes in? And then can you really come to from what space is it, and see that what Kabir mentioned with burn the tendency away, right? I think it's about seeing from what spaces you are acting and why you are getting into those roles, or like what in the first place is bringing you there. And I feel attention and awareness, what this chapter is also about, can distance you from that and help you to see that. And that automatically brings you to yourself in the way that you can step back and see, like, if there's a bird flying around and another bird is watching, and you're able to be that bird who's watching the turning bird, and then the moment comes where you're like, wait, you can just look at each other, and the turning bird can stop and look at the other bird, and then you're like, yeah, wow. Oh, okay, now I got myself, So I feel it's about catching these moments in your daily life situations where you are able to pause and to to kind of get yourself back. If you feel like you're drifting apart, you're drifting away into your functioning mode, then to catch yourself and bring yourself into this moment where you're like, okay, and then you can again like
It's very helpful.
put your energy in the right way, in so to
Yeah, that's
speak.
very practical. I think I can relate to that. Like I think I have at least felt that way what you just said, but that just helps a lot to think you can do a lot more of that. That's a very beautiful description of what happens actually. Like when you try to snap yourself out. But yeah, I think there are times when you actually are so away, if you've drifted so away, that you've actually drifted away from that uh Dushtavha, right? Like the bird which is viewing this. So sometimes you're just not even there. And I think as the whole chapter is saying, and as we are discussing, how can you be more build that also as an habit, right? Like how can you build that as an habit that there's always that bird who's looking from a distance?
Yeah, so how do you remind yourself of it? Maybe you need to find your own ways. It can be that you have your partner, it can be yourself. Maybe you put reminders in your phone, whatever you can. How do you get yourself for that snap? Like, I feel we need to, that's also part of sadhana, no? To put yourself in a way where you can be reminded of it, because the point of all of this is when we are in that circling bird perspective, it's very hard to remember that there's another bird watching and that you can stop. So how do you bring that momentum in when you get caught in that? So I think we need to be creative in establishing practices for ourselves where we can do it. One way can be meditation. Another thing is you put reminders. Another thing is whatever. It's also different for everyone how it works to bring yourself back, right?
I think the
Yeah,
same way. Go ahead. Go ahead. It'd be interesting, Kabir, if you can talk about Vipassana, right? Because I think this chapter specifically talks about delusion arises from the duality of attraction and aversion, like craving and aversion. And I think Vipassana's whole thought is captured in this sentence. And that's also a practical way of building that habit of always being in that Drishabha, right? The viewer, the bird which is just viewing and is not participating. Uh, and I have
yes.
personally done 2 courses of it, and then I found that to be a very good starting point also to build this habit of being in this viewer mode, right? And not in the person who's experiencing it.
Yes. Yes, Vipassana or Vipassana is Passana or Pashana means to see. Vipassana means Vishisht kind of thing in Sanskrit, which is special, a deeper way of looking at things, where Buddha kind of gave a way to his monks as to how to be in this state of beingness or witnessing space. And he gave very detailed guidance about sitting meditation and then about living a life of awareness, uh, especially people who are interested in Buddha's teachings, who have been on this path. I don't know, Nadine, if you have read this, but there is a sutta called Mahasati Pathan Sutta by Buddha. And I would say that is probably one of the most profound texts written on the specifics of meditation, on how to cultivate this witnessing attitude at different times. So, in this particular text, he talks about sitting meditation, but he also talks about practices which will sometimes even intellectually create certain sense of detachment. Like he suggests monks to visit, for example, places where dead bodies are burned, and then go and observe them day after day, week after day, week after week. In those days, there were some sort of graveyards, if you may call them, where people would just throw dead bodies and let them be. And animals will eat, and or the body will rot. And that was a spiritual practice which very few people know. That Buddha even advises monks to go and wash these bodies every day. And then he talked. So that sounds intellectual, right? But then it is just observing that is creating certain sense of detachment of what is it all for, right? And then he talks about sitting meditation and how we can focus on the breath and the posture, and how sitting in certain way and paying attention in certain way, and going into very specifics on how mind distracts us while we are with the breath, how it helps cultivate this ability in ourselves, this natural witnessing space within ourselves. And then he also talks about how while you are taking bath, even urinating, and he talks about all these different little activities during the day, how you can be mindful at all times. So bringing this ability of witnessing throughout the day. So yes, Vipassana is a way, and Vipassana courses, these 10-day courses which are run throughout the world, right, free of cost, offer you a space of these 10 days where you can disconnect your devices, you are not talking to each other, where you allow this voltage of presence to really, grow within you. So you can use, people have been using, people who are wise and smart use these as a tool in their journey to just go maybe once a year or twice a year to recharge this space of presence, which then usually it has been seen that it makes it easier for them to be in this space of witnessing. Is that what you're looking for, Shashank, or you had a
I think that's like it'll be great for viewers, because I have done that like a couple of times the course, and I think it's a very practical way of starting. Like if you really want to learn, like I think it's basically sadhana, but very much focused on the specific aspect of uh, getting into this drishta bhav, the bird who is viewing the things and not the person who's experiencing it themselves.
Yes.
So, I think there was this another passage which says, when a person is devoted to something with complete faith, I unify this faith in that. Then when faith is completely unified, one gains the object of devotion. I I think there's a whole world out there which kind of the science of manifestation, I think, which is basically summarized in these two sentences. And that's why I found this like I just made me thought that even when like two sentences can be basis of a like complete school of thought of Vipassana, these two can be complete. And there's so much literature around this, then like it makes you wonder that like, are all the passages so powerful? Can you like create a whole school of thought, a whole like world of literature around just those two lines of Gita? But yeah, it was like very any thoughts on this manifestation, like 2 lines about manifestation?
Again, you also say something.
Yeah, I mean, manifestation of what? I find this entire manifestation and affirmation space a bit tricky, because the question is always, what do people really want? What are you really asking for? What is the question behind that question that you want to have in your life?
I have to say, I'm amazed by your wisdom, because like I asked this question to actually Kabir, and like Kabir, like this is the right question, right? Like, and I was reading a book and I got confused that it says that you can manifest everything, and you have actually nailed exactly like the right question. So I'm just amazed at how quickly you can just come to the right aspect of the whole manifestation. Like, what do you really want to manifest? But please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think there's a lot of awareness needed, but for example, if people, they want to have more money, what for? Like, what do you think you're creating with having more money in your life? Like, I think a lot of manifestations and affirmations for people, they don't work, though they try it so hard, because they're asking not the right question. Like, they are not asking for what they truly need. They ask for something that they may desire because they've seen it with someone else, but it's not what they truly want and need. So you can't manifest something in your life that is not what you truly need. And that
I want to say something here. Can I interject a little bit? I think I'm putting it in different way, but you confirm nothing. I think one thing we have all heard this quote, so to speak: be careful what you wish for. is one, right? So this is what, have you really thought about it? Do you really know what you're wishing for? And Krishna is hinting, yeah, you'll get what you wish for, because ultimately you are supreme consciousness. So I would put it slightly different from you, Nadine, where I'm not saying that it will not manifest, but they were assuming that by manifesting money or success, they will be happier. But that assumption is where the blunder is. So yes, manifestation will happen. Maybe they will manifest money and success, but then they still are left wanting. And I was sharing with Shashank that there is this very popular book on manifestation called The Secret, and I forgot the name of author. Do you remember, Nadine?
No, but I know the book too.
You know the book where this is, I think she's Australian, uh, nevertheless. So she has come up with another book on manifestation, I think after 15 or 20 years of this book, The Secret, and she calls it The Real Secret. And she is validating exactly what we are saying. She is saying that yes, I could manifest everything which I wanted, but I have learned over all these years that I had not deeply questioned why do I really want this. And she is now in line with these sages, a lot of these sages who are manifesting joy instead of things in their life. And they are, in fact, surrendered to life. In fact, they are saying, we don't mind what is manifested in phenomenal world. We are more interested in manifesting the space of joy, the space of witnessing, because this is where fulfillment is, not in the outside manifestation. Shashank wants to
Something
say
to think about
something.
very popular culture, like something very similar. So there's a quote from Jim Carrey. I was looking at Twitter yesterday, and it said, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer. So I think
Yeah, that's what I meant with what if we are trying to manifest things that we see in the outer world, but like what Kabir said, like Kabir, there are people that try to manifest more money and they don't succeed. So it's
Of
also
course.
that.
Actually, most people don't, because they are trying. These books talk about how, because they have so much fear and so much attachment, and even to manifest things at phenomenal level. For example, if somebody wants to get selected to an institute, they should have enough wisdom to be able to detach from the result and focus on the process, right? So even when, okay, we want to manifest something, if there is a lot of fear and attachment to it, it weakens this this disconnects us from this power, which is this creative force. So a lot of good coaches of manifestation are able to hint at this, that it's, you should at the feeling level feel that it has happened, rather than have all these thoughts and fears around it, which is the case with most people trying to manifest. They are trying to manifest from the space of lacking. And in fact, that irrespective of those thoughts and intellectual ideas or images which they are trying to think, this emotion of fear or this feeling of lacking is what keeps manifesting itself more and more.
Exactly. Maybe I can give a practical example that I experienced during my college days, because we had like an oral exam coming up, and my flatmate and me, we were studying together and we learned together, we prepared together for this exam. And I felt like, wow, she got it all in detail. She knows so much more. Like I really felt she's much more better prepared. And at the same time, I felt like, yeah, but I'll make it. Like I just felt like I imagined the situation. I'm going in, the professors are sitting there. Like I saw the situation, how we're having a great conversation and they're asking me the questions that I can respond to. You know, I just went through that situation and I felt it. And my friend, she really knew much more than me. She was so scared. She was so fearful. And she, like, I came out with like a great success and she failed because she, like, they were asking her questions and she was like, I couldn't answer them. You know, it was so strange. And I was like, yeah, because you, and I mean, it's really difficult to tell that to someone who is in that state. And I know myself, I've also been in the state of fear when things don't work out. And it's very tricky to get yourself out of it. But this is where really the foundation lies in the manifestation as well. What you just said, Kabir, I just saw that literally in this example where she went fearful into it. She was afraid that she will fail. And I went into it thinking, yeah, I have the answers. They will ask me those questions that I know, and then I'll get it. And it was like that, so it's, and it's not about, because that's what I felt also with manifestation. A lot of people think, oh yeah, I just need to tell myself all day long, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. That it's not that you're just saying it. It's not about putting words out. It's really to feel that completely, like to
and
feel
the feeling in manifestation has to be, I have this, I'm there, rather than I want this. I want this means I don't have it. The feeling of lack. It's pretty subtle. It's not as people miss the subtlety, I feel, in most of the paths, and they focus on the superficial level, and that's why it doesn't work. But yeah, thanks for that example. I think that clarifies to more people.
So I think coming back to the more interesting questions, so one is the art of manifestation, and we were saying, you said earlier, Kabir, that you're still not tired, right? Like you're still not tired of the drama, basically, and that's why probably you're going to wish for manifesting things which will still truly not, give you what you really want. So is that like just a function of time then? Like, is the wisdom then just that you have to eventually get tired of the drama, do it enough lifetimes, and then there is this inner wisdom which builds that you have tried everything, it just doesn't work. So that's why now you need to focus on the inner consciousness.
I can't answer it in yes or no. Yes and no sounds more like it, but I think Buddha has explained these specifics really clearly. So he does say that for every individual manifestation of consciousness, every individual being, he says there is a bundle of sanskaras, bundle of karmas, and they need to burn away, either by accepting them and burning away at the root itself, or expressing them and letting them burn out that way. But one way or other, they need to burn out. All right. Now, it's not simply that there is destiny, and no matter what you do, and even what you are doing is destiny. That's not how he put it anyways. Buddha was clear that you have a choice. If you are going to, every time a sanskara is getting expressed, you have a tendency to create something, to do something, and you're doing it with attachment to the result and from the space of fear and anxiety. Then he says, you're not truly burning it. You're burning one sanskara and creating 10 more. And the cycle continues. So you do have a choice here. Yes, sanskara is there. It has to come up. So that part is destined, so to speak. But now, how do you deal with this sanskara is where he says you have a choice. And that's why he said, I keep walking and talking and guiding people, that you can come out of this circle.
But even that wisdom that you have choice, is that something you get only after like suffering, right? Like after suffering. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yes. Nadine wants to say something.
Yeah, what about that suffering? Because there's also really some beliefs that, oh yeah, you have to go through suffering to experience joy. Oh yeah, you have to really, it's very hard to find yourself and all that. Like, what do you say about this, Kabir?
I mean, I think Eckhart told, I really like Eckhart's answer on this. He says, yes, you need suffering. You will have suffering as long as you need it, is more like. So he's like, okay, if you feel you're not tired of things, you're still operating from the space of craving, aversion, reactions, and creating suffering and more suffering and more suffering. But eventually you can't take so much suffering. Something in you must say that what is this going on, right? So until one reaches that space, you may say life in its, you may say acid grace, so to speak, is increasing suffering in one's life until they are tired of it and they go within, and then you are in they are in this space of witnessing, and this suffering subsides. So is suffering absolutely necessary? uh, some people say yes, some people say not necessarily. It's a sort of a grace in you. So yes, many spiritual guides, genuine spiritual guides, that's why they don't get a sense of that I did it, I came out of suffering, I did everything. In fact, they say no, it's the grace of God, it's consciousness wanted to come out. And so intellectually it's very hard to answer, in fact, because we are limited to this lifetime, and we don't understand this space of consciousness, or space beyond consciousness, beyond space and time. So, and words themselves are pretty limited. So I'm sorry, I'm offering this excuse here that we cannot purely intellectually understand the law of sanskaras and why uh, it is there, because we mind only thinks in terms of cause and effect. But when we are in this, uh, when we are in the area of consciousness and how things operate at these subtler levels, which is beyond the level of mind and time flowing in one direction, then it's very difficult. You can only offer some hints and use your intuition. And that's why Buddha used to often, when questions used to go in this direction, he said, he would in fact go quiet. He'll say, I can tell you how to come out of it. Don't ask me why it started, how it started. You will not be able to make sense. You'll come out of it, and then you will know it intuitively, but you won't be able to tell anyone. So you will be able to help them come out of it, and then they would know, is how ultimately he would answer these questions.
Really interesting. Anything on your mind, Naveen? Okay, so we have some more technical question, right? So at one point it says there are like eight divisions of Prakriti, and I think we didn't touch on Prakriti and Purush, but like it says mind, intellect, and ego. So it'll be I'm just curious, like what does this distinction of mind, intellect, and ego?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we can touch on Prakriti and Purush also just as a concept. Prakriti is everything which is manifested, and not just the matter, but also thoughts, emotions, feelings, anything which you can experience, which you can ever experience, is Prakriti, is considered manifestation. And Purush is the experiencer, the space of awareness, which is aware even of the sensations in the body and feelings and thoughts and breath. So it is subtler than anything and everything. Uh, it can't be touched. You can, when I say you or I as the subject can experience the objects, but subject cannot experience himself in that way, himself or herself in that way. So that is the Purush, and that's the metaphor. And in the space of witnessing, your attention is more in the Purush, in the experiencer, in the space of awareness. And so there is some detachment from Prakriti, right? And eventually in this duality, where I think in this chapter, or at least the commentator, Easwaran, talks about how Krishna is hinting something slightly different from how Sankhya philosophy talks about it. But Sankhya doesn't merge Prakriti and Purush. That's the teaching of duality. But in the teaching of Advaita, or what Krishna is hinting, he says, oh, both come out of me as unmanifest. So even the experiencer, the consciousness is not the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality in which the experienced and the experiencer both manifest out of me, the unmanifest. Right? Leave it at that. And then the second question you asked is the difference between mind, the intellect, and the ego, and how I believe they mean it in this particular context here, because these terms are used very differently. Sometimes mind Sometimes people can say these three are different layers of mind and so on. Doesn't matter what terms we are using. But what is meant by mind in this particular context is pretty much this all these flow of thoughts and desires and urges and feelings, all these various feelings, from subtlest feelings of uh, happiness or and to anxiety, etc., all put together is this mind, which can't be experienced by anyone else but you. It's your subjective experience, right? Your body and everything in it can be seen externally, but your mind is different from the brain also. It's your personal experience. So, an intellect, there is a differentiation, how it was differentiated in Bhagavad Gita, man and buddhi, mind and intellect. So, mind is more like this spontaneous or uncontrolled space where things are showing up, all these thoughts and emotions are flowing. Intellect is an aspect where there is, you seem to have the ability to discern. Almost you may say, if you marry mind, a part of mind, with witnessing space, if when mind goes closer to witnessing space, it becomes an intellect, if I may say that, right? Because a part of aspect of mind is able to see other aspects of mind and able to determine that no, this is what is happening, that is what is happening, what do I want to do. like uh, like this discussion of art is uh, is primarily through intellect. Intellect is able to see these thoughts coming and going. So, intellect is this aspect of mind which has this ability to discern. And at different points of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is encouraging a sadhak to operate from the space of intellect to control the mind. He would, in fact, at some point explain that you have to hold the reins of mind. So you don't be swayed by the moods and cravings and aversions. Mind is like a monkey jumping here, there. Don't be swayed by every desire and run with it. Stay in this space of witnessing.
That's very
Yeah.
helpful. I think that image of intellect holding the reins of the mind, basically, or basic
Yes.
the part. I think I've heard this somewhere else, but the discernment aspect, that the
Yes.
part which can do discernment is the intellect.
And when you take decisions of your life, and that's where you do journaling. Why we do journaling is to be clear that what do I really want? What am I looking for? And this is you are developing your discernment, and you then write down, okay, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to sign up for these hard practices, and I'm going to design my day like this because who is this saying that I want to choose this over that? I don't want my mood swings to decide my day. And this is tricky because a lot of times we have talked about it before, that moods can so easily be confused with the spontaneity or intuition. And they are at two ends of eye spectrum, right? We usually find, after following our moods, that our energies are dissipated and distracted, and we are at this more constricted space within ourselves, while intuition always is taking you closer to this space of witnessing, right? So mind versus intellect. And then you mentioned ego. Ego again is ego as it is talked about in Hindu scriptures, in Vedanta, in Bhagavad Gita, is not arrogance. Sometimes ego is a synonym of arrogance in English language. But in this particular context, all that ego means is that I am body and mind. Just a simple statement which would be considered in science as a fact. Of course, you are body and mind. But in Bhagavad Gita, it is considered a state of ignorance that we all are suffering. So ego is just this very strong belief that I am body mind, that I am Kabir, I am Shashank, I am Nadine, and the autobiography of it. So, whenever we refer to I just 2 minutes after waking up, it is referring to this entire autobiography, that I am so and so with so and so background, I've done this, and it has all the agendas. I need to do this, and all this happened to me, and all this will happen to me, which is actually not who you truly are. So that is hinted by Krishna, and his many of his hints and guidance to Arjun is to experience that he is more than this character called Arjun in Mahabharata, and his relatives are more than those particular characters. Nadine started today's session by saying that roles, if we know that we are playing this role, or that we are more than this role right now. But this goes even a step deeper and says even this body mind is a temporary manifestation that we are using only in a particular lifetime, in this particular lifetime. And as we realize that, then things take on a much more lighter weight in our life, as you can imagine, right? So ego is just that wrong belief that we all carry, if I may summarize it like that.
No, that was very helpful. Thank you, Kabir. Uh, any closing thoughts from you, Nadine or Kabir, on this chapter?
No, not from my side. I think we covered quite a lot, and a lot of complexity also, which is there. And okay, so now I'm saying something well. You know what Kabir also said, what I want to really highlight is the subtleness. I think this is really where you either are the consciousness or you're not. It's a very subtle line, no? What you also just said at the end, Kabir. Those mood swings, for example, are they my intuition, my spontaneous, real action, or is it some, I don't know, something which is based on your desire, which is not met or whatsoever? And to distinguish, I think that's the art in it. This is what the sadhana is about, to practice where this fine line is, to understand where you are yourself and where you are not. So, yeah.
Actually, I just read the last sentence of of the book, and it says, "Those who see me ruling the cosmos, who see me in the Bhuta, the Daiva, and the Yajna, are conscious of me even at the time of death." So, and I know there's a lot of significance of what you're conscious of at the time of death, right? So, is this again a lot of wisdom here? Those, like, what is significance of being conscious about being in that consciousness at the time of death? Kabir, sorry, I know we're closing it out,
No
but
worries.
yeah.
No worries. Yeah, can I share something funny though, and then answer maybe to what I can. Somebody asked a Zen master once that, Master, what happens after death? And he said, I don't know. And he said, but you are the spiritual master. You should know. He said, yeah, yes, I'm a spiritual master, but I'm not a dead master. So, we're putting that aside, right? How? So, I think Buddha answered this really well. He said you can't, because people used to talk for, even during the time of Buddha, that if only you can be in particular state of consciousness at the time of death. And that's why many people used to name their children as Ram or name of gods, because, okay, we will just take name of God at the time of death. And it's almost like they are thinking that they'll trick God into thinking they are thinking of God, but they are actually thinking of their child. That's the funny part. But why all this happened was people gave it a lot of importance as to where your mind is in the last moment of this particular form, this particular body, because it sort of decides your next destination. And it is confirmed by Buddha also. Yes, your last moment of consciousness is pretty much what decides the next moment. And we have this misunderstanding that, oh, if only just let me be unconscious for the rest of the life and let me just be conscious at the last moment. But people who have gone through near death experiences will confirm that the last moment is always the sum total of the entire life we live. And so your level of consciousness it's not a choice. First of all, it will be sum total of how we lived our lives, right? So what Krishna is hinting here is that also there are other philosophies or paths which talk about in Christianity also, which talk about dying uh, before dying. So die to yourself, as in death of an ego before death of the body. So again, this is a space of witnessing. When your autobiography is drawn, it feels, and that is the exact experience I had when I first experienced, so to speak. It is a paradoxical thing to say I experienced my death, right? But that's how it feels. That autobiography disappears, and yet the space of awareness is there. And it feels like dying before dying, right? So I know where they are coming from. So Krishna is sort of hinting that if you are living as if you are dead and living in the space of wisdom, then you are so conscious about and so detached with what is happening. And even at the time of death, there is no suffering. You intuitively know you are changing a form. And you can, so in a paradoxical way, observe the death of your body mind and the start of a new body mind. Well, if you're established in the place of awareness. And that's why a lot of uh, authentic spiritual teachers like Nisargadatta Maharaj and other masters, they they say we are feeling a sense of relief that this body is become so sick and old. I am so looking forward to taking a new form now. They don't see fear this dissolution at all. They talk about metaphors like changing a new dress when your older dress is so old and dirty. And so for them, death is a period of celebration, is a relief.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. So, Kabir, any closing thoughts?
I would summarize this chapter, or the most beautiful part I liked about this chapter is Krishna talking as our pure consciousness within all of us, and again reminding us to fall in love with himself, fall in love with yourself, the capital S, and give that priority more than anything out there. And just that is enough. You need not understand the path. Even if you don't understand the technicalities of karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, doesn't matter. Just if you are interested in me, I will take you in and you will merge with me. I think that was the most beautiful aspect of this.
Very beautifully put. Fall in your fall in love with yourself with capital N. And so thanks for getting together today. We'll see all of yours again with chapter 8 next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashank.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abhay.